Welcome to Smart Money with me, Ibrahim Sani. Today we're talking about the smartphone industry. And joining me is Matthew Ng, the Deputy Country Director for the Huawei Consumer Business Group for Malaysia. This guy's an industry veteran, over 17 years of experience with a bunch of other competitors there, including Samsung and other smartphone groups. Now, of course, Matthew, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Huawei has been an interesting brand in the smartphone world. They have overtaken a bunch of brands to take the lead in the market leader. And of course, in Malaysia, Huawei is ranked number 2. In China, it's the best-selling phone for this year. Why do you think the consumer aspect is actually embracing Huawei phones?
I guess Huawei has been in the industry for a while, building networks and whatnot. But for devices, I guess we actually came into the market maybe about 7-8 years ago, and we've progressed a lot since, spending billions and billions of dollars. As in fact, over the last 10 years, Huawei has spent 37 billion in R&D for its network and devices.
Now, of course, it's not just about spending in the R&D, it's also shouting out there in the market. 8x spend is actually tremendous. Huawei is spending a lot more than other competitors, including Oppo, including a bunch of other companies out there. Do you think that that is one of the core reasons as well on why Huawei is capitalizing the market?
Well, most definitely. One of the main idea that Huawei tried to instill in all of us is actually the core value of customer centricity. So we address pain points, we identify what are some of the pain points in consumers, and that's where we develop items to develop features and how should I say, additional
like a feature,
like features to make it convenient to benefit consumers.
Okay. A lot of consumer phones out there, they do this as well. They do try to build that features where consumers would be more accepting towards these kind of features. But it's a hit and miss sometimes. In fact, you know, there was a huge furor, for instance, when Apple removed the headphone jacks.
Right.
For instance, right? People were not accepting that idea. How does Huawei position yourself in trying to understand what works and what doesn't for the consumer space?
Well, in reality, we do years and years of study onto what consumer wants. For example, in the year 2014, if I'm not mistaken, there were close to 1 trillion photographs taken around the world, and about 80% of that came from mobile devices. So Huawei decided to embark on a long-term journey with Leica, and that actually gave rise to the Huawei brand.
All right. Including the P10 brand or model, because that is something that the market is actually talking about right now.
Right.
Do you think that that is the selling proposition for this particular model?
That's definitely for sure. We've got a few series. The P series focuses on lifestyle, and photography is one of the main part of lifestyle. And then, of course, we have the Mate series, which highlights on performance. So,
all right. A few weeks back, there was an announcement on the Nova series as well. Let's talk about that.
Well, the Nova series will be made available in a couple of days. This is one of the very first few phones in the world with 4 cameras, 2 in the front, 2 at the back, with a full screen, edge to edge, of 5.9 inch. And this is in fact priced at 1,299, which is way ahead of all the other consumers, because we believe in making the right price so that consumers benefit.
Speaking of price point, because I was about to ask you this, right? Android phones traditionally have a lower price point than Apple phones. Do you think that there comes a time when there is a need for you to benchmark your price point to be equal to that of Apple phones, so that you can actually improve on the features on the phone?
Well, let's look at it this way. Apple phones are iOS based, and if you want to use iOS effectively, you've got no choice. You have to use Apple. Now, if you want to use Android, there are so many, probably 1,000,001 brands out there. And having said that, we are in major competition, and we believe that as long as we are able to keep the manufacturing cost low, we won't try to charge exorbitant prices. In fact, so one of the recent launches of one of our competitor brands being sold at close to 4,000 ringgit. Effectively, you can get 2 very good phones with Huawei already.
I think you're talking about Samsung and their latest announcement. But okay, we'll take a short break. But when we come back, we'll discuss more about the trends of the smartphone industry. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Smart Money. I'm your host, Ibrahim Sani. And of course, today we have the Huawei Deputy Country Manager, Matthew. A recent study has shown that Malaysian penetration rate for mobile phones is actually 140%.
That's right.
Easily put, for every 2 people out there, there's 3 phones between the 2 people.
Close to that.
What is the trend for the smartphone landscape in the country?
Well, Malaysia has been, well, in fact, Southeast Asia has been very inclined to large screen based. If you, I don't know whether if you noticed this, but in the European countries, anything between 5 to 5.2 inch sells well. But in Malaysia, anything over 5.5 inch sells well. And that's why you see a lot of flagship phones coming into Malaysia are all at 5.5 inch and above.
Can I ask you about the tablet market as well? Does that mean that for Malaysia at least, the tablet market isn't that great as compared to other markets in the world?
That's not exactly true. I think globally the tablet market is actually shrinking, especially for large screen size tablets like 10 inch and above. We still run a healthy sales for our 7 inch tablets. So yeah.
Okay, what would be the criteria for consumers when they think about trying to buy either a smartphone or even a tablet for that matter?
Sorry.
The consumer consideration when they want to purchase a smartphone.
Well, large screen size is definitely one of them, and the fact that as long as some of the few pain points that consumers have is actually battery. We did a major study over 2 years, and we found that one of the major pain points is actually the battery. You see people holding major flagships, nice, beautiful looking phones, but they carry a power bank. This is a thing of the past after I've joined Huawei for me. Because I started using the Mate series, and even today, after 9 months of use, this phone can last me 1.5 days easily.
And how much battery power are we talking about here?
It's a 4,000 milliampere.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's not about the size of the battery.
Yeah.
We've got 4,000. Some of the other brands got 5,000. But the drainage and the power management for Huawei, it's way ahead of everybody else.
Of course, the consideration is, of course, the Android-based versus iOS-based software as well. That also talks about the power drainage of the battery power. There's also screen size brightness, where the brighter the screen, the more it takes the power. So does that mean that some phone companies, I'm not talking about Huawei, but generally some phone companies would tend to have a default lower brightness setting, that kind of stuff?
Well, I guess I can't exactly comment on what other manufacturers do, but for us, we try to make sure, because if there is once you buy the phone, there is a automatic setting where it will adjust its brightness according to the environment, and in areas where it's brightly lit and the screen needs to compete with the light elsewhere, then it'll be brighter.
I've spoken to an economist talking about inflation rates for consumer goods, and easily food and beverages, that segment has gone up tremendously in terms of inflation rate. But he did mention that consumer goods for electronics and technology has gone down. The argument that he used is, if you bought a $2,000 phone, 2,000 ringgit phone 3 years ago, you would get far lower specs than 2,000 ringgit phone today. That means that phones are getting better, but they are getting cheaper as well. Does that mean that better phones with cheaper price points are something that we can expect for the future?
I guess it is an economy of scale. When technology is in the mass production, the prices will tend to go lower. But having said that, there is always advancement in technology, and the billions and billions that manufacturers spend on R&D, that will come into cost play as well. So somewhat, at least for us, we're trying to keep the phones at reasonable prices where affordability is the main consideration. And
with so many smartphone makers out there in the market, how do you think the brands that want to do well, how are they going to push forward and try to differentiate themselves from their competitors?
Well, effectively, for a brand to do well, there are a few aspects. Number one would be you need to have a good product, and then you need to have a lot of money for marketing. Aside from that, you need to have a good team, and which effectively means higher costs for hiring more people. And then you're going to have a lot of channel support. Huawei has done pretty well in this area because our collaborations with all the operators have reaped results, and that's what is making us at a more than $500 price point, we are standing at about 30% market share.
One thing that I didn't pick up when you said that was on R&D. Do you think that the R&D phase has been overcome by many of these manufacturers? Now they're focusing more on distribution and marketing?
Well, I guess R&D and marketing is two separate things altogether. In fact, the marketing bit will have to market whatever that the R&D sells, and the R&D will have to take into consideration what the marketing can sell.
Okay.
So
it's not like a mad scientist syndrome. They just do the best, but the market doesn't want it.
No.
Okay. What can we expect in the near future from Huawei?
Well, in a couple of days, the Nova 2i will be made available. And then also in a few days, on October 16, we will be launching the Mate 10 in Munich. And that will be made available actually very, very soon after.
All right, Matthew, it's a pleasure speaking to you. I've been speaking to Matthew Ng, the Deputy Country Manager for Huawei, and that wraps up this episode of Smart Money. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at 501 Awani. Download our app on the Google Play and the Apple App Store. I'm Ibrahim Sani. Thanks for watching and goodbye.